drugs. That it's an unintentional thing. And so as I was looking through this, Carly never mentioned it to any of her previous providers. Ashley, who was very involved, never mentioned it. She did mention some zoning out, I believe, and Heath did call me, and he very, we did not get out of this, but he did say she had some periods of kind of forgetting things, having to use a calendar to remember some things, which was unusual what he said. Also, voluntary intoxication. If she's smoking marijuana to, I don't know how often, at some point, I think she even may have drank Germex per like one of her colleagues that said that. I don't know if that's true or just hearsay. But if there was some substances that she may have been abusing, it's hard to say. Was that related to substances, which she acknowledges the marijuana, or was that a real dissociative spell?
And Dr. Pickett, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There was actually a point where Carly related either in her journal or to a provider that she had smoked marijuana on the 16th of March and she had something come over her body that she had never felt before. Do you remember seeing that?
I don't recall seeing that. I may
Okay.
have missed it. I did want to say, I remember my thought is that none of the dissociative spells, because trauma and dissociative spells are so closely related, in her, she saw Annette Bryant monthly for years, from 2015 to 2019, when she was really young. And that was closer to the proximate trauma.
Fellas fiddling on roofs, barbers eating people, hip-hopping presidents.
If she were legitimately having dissociative spells, I would have expected them to have been closer to the proximate trauma. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but typically I would have expected that. Also, dissociative spells are, I've never experienced one, but from the few people that I've talked to that say they have, they're not pleasant, and they're scary, and you're not in control of your body. I just find it very hard to believe that an adolescent who was experiencing these, that was so close to her mother, who was very involved in her life, would not have mentioned it. That's hard for me to believe. And then lastly, the malingering and the secondary gain, just the convenience of, I don't remember anything from when I took the dogs out to when I woke up in the sewer. But, in block is what it's called, in block dissociative spells, where it's a big finite period. Those are rare. As Dr. Clark said, the patchy dissociation is more common. And so to say that you don't remember anything from these periods, given all of this, is just really hard for me to believe.
You were here yesterday when Dr. Clark testified, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think he talked about that it's more common, that it's patchy, and Ms. Todd kind of attempted to clear that up, and he was saying that still wouldn't change, even if she remembered certain things, that wouldn't change his diagnosis. But Carly had reported to him in his evaluation that she was having, and I don't think flashbacks is the right word, but that she was hearing gunshots in her dreams, that she was having, she told Dr. Giuliano that she was queasy thinking about the incident. Is that in line with somebody who does not remember an event happening?
If she were having patchy amnesia, I could say maybe. But if you're reporting in block amnesia from a period, I would find it very hard to believe that you have those symptoms related to an incident that you don't remember.
I want to ask this too. This may seem like a silly question. You've used the word malingering a couple times. For somebody that's not a psychiatrist or even in the medical field, is malingering just kind of faking?
In very basic terms, they're similar. It's deceptive. It's lying for a secondary gain. You have a reason. Maybe, yeah, you have a reason to lie, and you do, or you exaggerate your symptoms for a secondary gain. That's what malingering is.
And in this case, you consider that Carly, now talking about these dissociative spells, is in fact her malingering because she has a secondary gain.
In my opinion, that's a very high probability, yes.
And Dr. Clark actually testified yesterday that there are times, quite frequently, that people that commit the crime of murder claim that they were in a dissociative state because they have huge secondary gains.
Yeah. According to some of the literature I quoted, yes, that's very common. It's one of the most common.
I want to talk a little bit more about this disassociation. We know from all the testimony of her providers and the medical records that there was no history of this noted in any of her records prior to March 19. Did Carly report to you that she had had any additional spells of disassociation after March 19th?
Yes, while we were talking, I cited in my report the time. I asked her, I said, have any of these spells, and I'm paraphrasing, have any of these spells where you do not remember things, or dissociative spells, have any of those happened since the incident? And she said, yes, actually, I'm having one right now as we were doing the evaluation. And that was a 4.5 hour evaluation in which I did many tests that tested her intelligence and ability to complete tasks and recall and spatial awareness and language and all these things. And she said she was having one then. And she also said, well, back Tuesday in court, I had one, and Attorney Todd agreed with her and said, yes, I could see it on your face. And so when I asked Carly about these spells, she said they happened every time her mother yelled at her. But she did say that she seemed to remember those incidents, was my impression. And yet this one, she said she did not remember it. That's my understanding from talking with her. And so it was very inconsistent. And there's one thing I do think is important. I think we need to distinguish between zoning out and inattention, which happens to all of us, and dissociative spells. As I was saying earlier, there's some disorders that you legitimately have where you don't have control over and you dissociate. And what you do during that period, we can talk about and discuss. But there's disorders that it happens sporadically, and then there's kind of peri-traumatic dissociative spells. And what Carly seemed to be describing to me were peri-traumatic dissociative spells. When her mother would yell at her, she would dissociate because that triggered her. That's a trauma in her eyes. The DSM-5 TR gives examples of a prisoner of war who's being tortured, and their body cannot take it anymore. And so their brain essentially hits, for lack of a better word, the ejection button. And the brain says, I cannot take this anymore. I'm under so much stress. I'm out here. And it dissociates. Or another example that the DSM-5 TR gives is human sex trafficking. Somebody who's being repeatedly raped over and over. Their bodies cannot take the trauma that they are experiencing anymore, and their brain hits the ejection button, which, to my knowledge, the brain does not do this half-heartedly. It leaves the body in a very vulnerable state, being dissociated. You are vulnerable to everything around you. If you cannot control your body, you're vulnerable to predators, attack, anything. The brain, it doesn't make sense that the brain would do this half-heartedly. Again, there are disorders where it happens sporadically and you cannot control them. Dissociative identity disorder, the dissociative fugue, the dissociative amnesia, but the peri-traumatic dissociative spells, to my understanding, you are being traumatized, and therefore your brain hits the ejection button, but you do not dissociate and then go traumatize other people, is my understanding. And that's from my training, my research, things that I've read about this, preparing, and the articles, and my training and knowledge and experience and seeing patients.
Dr. Pickett, I want to put you to page 31 of your report quickly when you were talking about your conversation with Carly regarding her dissociative spells. Was there a time that she actually said, like, she called it derealization?
I believe so, yes.
And what is, I mean, is that a medical term?
Yes, it is.
In treating any of your other patients, have they ever used the term, I was derealized?
No.
Do they call it themselves before getting a diagnosis, I disassociated?
No.
And prior to your evaluation with Carly, she actually had not received any diagnoses of dissociation. Isn't that true?
Correct.
But in fact, the defense told you that that was going to be their argument for insanity, right?
Yes.
Tell me about
one haven't.
Tell me about that, because that was on the day of your evaluation before, I think 5 or 6 days before we got their expert report.
Can you clarify exactly which part so I make sure I'm following you?
Yeah. So in your interview, you asked about making sure that you kind of covered all the right things. You kind of wanted to know what is it? Why is it that you're claiming Carly was insane?
Yeah, I do remember that. At one point, and it is on the audio, you can hear, I asked, I think Carly may have stepped away just to go to the bathroom, and I asked Attorney Todd, I said, hey, I want to make sure I cover the right stuff. Can you tell me, can you clarify exactly what, as far as insanity? And she said that, I think she said the medications worsened an underlying unrecognized diagnosis. And I said, okay, all right, I'm just making sure I'm following. And that was, I think Dr. Clark had done his evaluation the day before.
And do you recall what Carly said as she walked back into the room for the evaluation?
I cannot remember.
Would it refresh your memory? She said something about, like, what mental condition do I have?
I'd have to listen to the audio. I can't remember.
But to that point, she had not been diagnosed by any physician or psychiatrist with dissociation.
Not that I was able to find in reviewing the medical records, psychiatric records.
When you asked Carly to describe the events of March the 19th, how did she describe her mom's demeanor when she found out about the vape pens and the burner phones?
I think, if my memory serves me correctly, she described her as frustrated, and they didn't talk on the ride home. She was upset, and her mom searched her backpack, and they didn't talk on the ride home. And
so Carly acknowledged that mom was very upset about finding out these things. So you asked Carly to describe for you kind of what she could remember from that day, March the 19th, 2024.
Wix gives you the power of AI to build the website you need. With full
that she hadn't slept well the night before, went to school that morning, was irritable, cussed out a friend, went through the rest of her day. I believe she was doing okay. And then she went to, I remember her explaining that she remembered going from her room, down the hall, up the stairs, and to her mother's room. And then when she got there.
And to be clear, I'm sorry to interrupt you. She's talking about at the school still,
At the
right?
school. Yes, because her mother was a teacher. And after that, it seemed like, according to what I've gathered, that her mother was upset and pack. They drove home. They did not talk, and they were upset.
And then did Carly tell you she remembers letting the dogs outside.
Yep. She told me that she remembers letting the dogs out, and then she doesn't remember anything from then until when she awoke in the sewer.
And when you asked her about the sewer, do you recall her saying, I knew I did something wrong because I wouldn't have been running away?
I remember her saying something along the lines of that she said that she did something wrong to the police officer because it seemed like the logical thing to do, was kind of how she described it.
And then she said something to the effect of, when he asked her if you're the girl that shot, she said, yeah. And that's what she's talking about, because it was the logical thing to do.
I believe so, yes.
In your audio recording, you're talking to her about that time, about after she came out of the sewer, and when we know to be Tony Shack, we watched the video of that yesterday, takes her into custody. And she said something to the effect of, I thought Heath was dead. Do you remember her saying that?
I remember watching the deputy's audio, his video camera, and she asked about Heath. And then the officer, the deputy, mentioned the mother, but then yesterday in his testimony, he said it wasn't the mother, it was just Heath. And that's that.
What, if anything, do you remember about Carly describing for you seeing Bennett and his mom on the scene?
Yes, I believe in my audio it talks about how she was worried. She remembers seeing Bennett and Bennett's mother and was worried that they would hate her.
And did she tell you why she thought they would hate her at that moment?
She didn't elaborate that. I had my presumptions, but I did not force her to say why.
Because based upon what she told you, she only remembered letting the dogs out and coming to in the sewer, right?
Right.
So they'd be mad at her about something to do with letting the dogs out?
I don't know.
Dr. Pickett, I want to talk to you a little more about your opinion regarding the McNaughton standard, right? So we, unfortunately, people had to see these videos where Carly goes into a room. We hear 3 gunshots, and then she comes out. I want you to walk me through the reasons that you believe that she had specific intent to commit these crimes, and that she knew right from wrong at the time.
They rode home but did not talk. This is per Carly. She was frustrated. Ashley was frustrated, per Carly. And then when they get home, I start in the garage video footage. I see Carly, what looks like she kind of jerks the door open, looks frustrated. Then they go inside and they're at the kitchen. They put everything down and they make eye contact. And Carly looks her in the eyes and kind of rolls her neck like this, which is kind of, to me, seems like a tense situation. They're not talking. And then Ashley goes straight to Carly's side of the house, presumably Carly's room. So knowing the context, seeing that, it seems like a tense situation where Ashley being as involved, and her, according to Carly, one of her greatest fears was that Carly would one day turn into her dad, who constantly used substances and had a lot of mood lability. And so Ashley seems to go straight to Carly's room, or Carly's side of the house. I don't know that it was her room. And Carly can be seen on the Wise video footage kind of moving back and forth, touching her face, touching her hair. Seems a little frustrated, anxious. And so I go through all that video, I watch it. And then after Carly walks back in the house. So at one point you see in the video, Carly takes the dogs out. Ashley comes back. She kind of looks through the window. At one point she has what looks like a little black cylinder shaped small object in her hand. I don't know what it is. I presume, based on the context and knowing what about it, that it is maybe a vape pen. I don't know for sure. And so then Ashley goes back towards, I think, her room and then Carly's room or area, side of the house. Carly comes in the house. And at this time, Ashley is on Carly's side of the house. Carly kind of comes up to the entryway. She's leaning forward. She's got both of her hands, not in fists, I don't want to say fists, but down by her side. She's leaning forward. She pauses as if she's thinking something, and then slowly turns towards her room. And then she quickly, briskly walks directly across the screen from Carly's side of the house to Ashley's side of the house. So given the context and seeing her walk so briskly, seemingly purposefully, directly to where the object is that could kill her mother or kill somebody, to me shows an intact memory. It shows an intact motor function. It shows coordination, and it suggests a specific intent. She did not walk to the kitchen and grab a banana. She did not walk in a disorganized state of mind. She did not walk to the living room and grab a remote control in a confused, dissociative spell. She walked directly to where the sole object that could kill her mother was, and she retrieved it. To me, that says that this person shows a very specific intent on what they plan to do. And that suggests that she understands the nature and the quality of what she's about to do. That's why she went specifically to where the gun was, not to the kitchen or to anywhere else. Continuing on, and it gets even more convincing to me as I watch the video, at 16, 14, 15 on that video, she peeks around the corner and she's hiding something, concealing something behind her back. To me, this shows a spatial awareness. So Ashley could have moved. Ashley could have moved to the kitchen. You've got to look around and see, because if that person has moved, your intended target has moved, you don't want to just walk straight across to your room with this object. They could intervene. They could see you. They could stop you. Instead, in a very methodical manner, she peeks around the corner with the object behind her back. To me, that shows spatial awareness. And these are high functioning executive skills that your brain has to, different areas, the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe, all of these different areas of the brain have to do this for you to do such intricate things. This was done, in my opinion, as a forensic psychiatrist reviewing this video, to locate the intended victim, to ensure Ashley had not moved so that she could not intervene, and so that she could, and she did it in a very, just her head around the corner, hiding the object. That suggests, that's almost predatory, in my opinion. That is looking, that is intentional, that's not accidental, that's not dissociative, that's not psychotic. Then after she does that, she clears the kitchen, she sidesteps with the object still behind her back, and this object is still directly where the Wise camera cannot see it. And it's an awkward sidestep, and I wouldn't expect somebody to do that unless they were intentionally trying to conceal or avoid detection from the surveillance camera. And that, to me, suggests strongly that she appreciated the nature, quality, and wrongfulness of what she was doing at that time. Then she goes into her bed, her side of the house, I presume her room, and we hear the gunshots. And then we hear some screams. And as I know from reviewing the autopsy pictures, there were at least 2 shots in Ashley's head. That takes that marksmanship of landing those shots on a relatively small target that if you shoot it once, I presume with gravity and whatnot, it might move. So to stay on it and shoot it again shows a high level of brain functioning. Motor centers, the cerebellum with coordination, the occipital lobe with the visual centers. This is a high level of functioning. So then, continuing on, then Carly comes, a little time passes, Carly comes into the dining area and she gets Ashley's phone. I believe it's Ashley's phone from what I've been told. And there's a passcode on it and she unlocks it, which that to me shows that she has some degree of intact memory, hand-eye coordination, and that this was calculated and specific. You have to type in a specific code to unlock the phone. It's not a disorganized, unintentional, random numbers. It's a specific code. And then she texts Heath, her stepfather, which is a specific target. It's not a disorganized, confused, psychotic, random numbers. It's Heath's phone that she dials. And then she texts him and says, "You almost home, comma, honey, question mark." In my report, I used some very strong language just to describe this one aspect. I used the word diabolical. And I stand by that word. I do not believe Carly is a diabolical person. I do not believe she's an evil person. I believe all of us have the potential for good and evil, and in us, it's human nature. As a psychiatrist, I study human nature, anger, lust, greed. These are things I study. And so we all have the potential to do that. But when Carly on that day went and unlocked the phone, text a specific target, her stepfather, who she told me was more of a father figure to her than Kevin was, and said, "When are you almost home, honey?" Using that honey is an enduring term. I might use it for my family, a loved one. I wouldn't use it for a stranger. When she did that to me, that was very specific and diabolical. And that to me is not consistent with a dissociative spell. That is not consistent with psychosis. That is not consistent with mania. And it's definitely not consistent with hypomania. To me, that was deceitful. And so the fact that she did it from Ashley's phone instead of her own phone, I asked myself, why would she do that? If I don't know the norms of their family, I don't know if it's normal for Carly to text Heath and say, "Hey, when are you going to be home?" That might have, if that's not normal, that might have been a warning, or like, something wrong. Why are you texting me? Why are you texting me when I'm going to be home? So to me, the fact that she did it from Ashley's phone, posing as her mother who's in the other end dead or dying, really suggests a specific intent, that she understood the nature, the quality of what she was doing, and I would suggest even the wrongfulness by she didn't use her own phone because she didn't want to raise alarm, in my opinion. Then at one point in that video, right about that same time, she lets out this like hymn. Look, the camera's right, knows the camera's there. She sidestepped earlier with the gun behind her back, which tells me she is aware that that camera is there. When she came back into the dining room, she had something behind her back that she laid on the stool. She kept it on the stool behind her. At one point, the dog walks behind her. She kind of looks behind to make sure there's not going to fall off in front of the camera. So all of that suggests to me that she was very aware of the camera. And I think that she was trying to, for lack of better words, play cool and just, she's interested in music. She plays the guitar. She plays the mandolin. She built a mandolin with her grandfather. She's a musical person. And I think she naturally let out this hymn as almost a play cool. I know the camera's on me, but it was not disorganized. It was not in some weird, disorganized fashion. It was not weird language. It was not a demonic voice. It was not, it was a short hymn. And I think she was trying to play cool. And I think it, to me, that was callous. And so I also think it was related to some nervous adrenaline. Like she's very, and she lets out this hymn. Continuing on, as I watched the video, at one point she goes back, after that, she goes back to her room or her side of the house. I don't know, there was room. And the dogs are in the dining room and they make some noise. And she yells out, Heath, Heath, Heath. That was a very specific name. That was not a disorganized name. It was not a random stranger. It was.
Choose a GAF Master Elite contractor. Only about 2% of roofers nationwide are Master Elite, and only they can offer GAF's best warranties. For an experienced contractor, choose a GAF Master Elite roofer.
Let's get real. It's hard to live up to that mug. Sometimes you don't check the traffic report.
I've got to go. I got to get rid of it because I don't know if Heath's coming. Heath, is that you? Because she is in the room with her dead mother. That to me suggests that she strongly understood the nature and the quality of what she was doing at that time. That's why she called out his name. That's why she let the dogs out, because they were making noise. She doesn't know, is that the dogs making that noise or is that Heath coming in? So she lets the dogs out. And this conveniently puts her right beside the camera footage that then turns off and is later found hidden behind some water bottles in the refrigerator. I presume it's hidden. There were water bottles and it was behind it in the corner. To me, that strongly suggests somebody who's trying to find evidence and avoid detection because they appreciated the wrongfulness of what they were doing. A psychotic person who's disorganized and doesn't know who they are or what just happened or where they're at, I do not believe would put the camera, take it down and put it in the refrigerator behind water bottles. This also, when she came back out, gives her a second opportunity in front of the camera to play cool. And she said to the dog, she kind of whistles and she says to the dogs, it's okay, it's okay. And I have dogs myself, and I thought, why would I tell my dogs it's okay unless it wasn't okay? Unless even seemingly the dogs might have appreciated that it wasn't okay. I'm not a dog psychiatrist, but some things seem to transcend species. And at this point, I saw dogs were down, their ears were down, they were running around, and she lets them out, and she even comforts them and says, it's okay, it's okay, and whistles. And to me, that was kind of self-incriminating. It's a small thing, but a guilty conscience. If you're aware of what you've done, you might try and comfort the dogs and say, it's okay, it's okay. Then, so that's from the video footage. Then I get into the text messages. Do you want me to continue on?
Yes, please.
So with SK Riley, she texts and says, Carly says, I need help, which tells me she understood the situation to some degree. Then she capitalizes it, emphasizing, I need help, which tells me she's serious. She knows, she understands the nature and the quality of what just happened. Then she replies, I can't tell you, which again tells me she understood the wrongfulness, because why couldn't she tell one of her best friends unless she couldn't tell her because she understood that it was wrong? And then she said, I'm not going to KMS. That stands for kill myself or anything. She even appreciated that her friend was concerned that she was going to harm herself. And she recognized that and was able to tell her friend and comfort her friend, I'm not going to kill myself. That showed me a awareness of her situation and even an appreciation of her friend's concern. Continuing on, she referenced, I'm glad you met Raymond. So I found out through discovery and things and talking, and that Raymond, I believe, is a boyfriend of Sarah's or a friend or a lover or something. And she references this Raymond. And S.K. Riley even thanked her for that. To me, if you're in a dissociative spell where you are so out of your mind and so psychotic that you don't understand the nature, quality of what you're doing, I find it very hard to believe that you would be able to recall a relationship that your friend has with somebody and reference that to them.
Your Honor, maybe approach for just a second. Yes.
Other than the Sarah Kate Rayleigh text messages, were there other messages that indicated to you, because the jury has heard some of those messages from Sarah Catherine Rayleigh and Bennett Germany, were there other messages or other things that you relied upon in determining that she did in fact know right from wrong on that day?
There's other text messages. There's one with Bennett and there's one with Thad. And then there's also some things from Brooks' statement that I read that were, but see, that's her statement, but these are actually Carly's words at the time. And so I think they're important because to me, they speak volumes about her understanding of the nature and the quality at the time. So I know those witnesses have spoken, but the text messages do speak to her understanding of the nature and the quality of what was going on.
And included in some of those messages, I think Sarah Catherine read out something to the effect of, last message was, I'll tell you tomorrow if I see you. Did you consider that one?
Yeah. That to me suggested that she had a more than an understanding, even an appreciation that there might be some consequences coming my way for this, and I may not see you tomorrow.
And similarly, when she told Thad, excuse my language, I've fucked up. I mean, that would indicate that she knew that she had done something wrong.
In my opinion, yes.
She was able to tell Bennett what her address was and where she was. Is that your understanding of the text messages between them as well?
Yes, which I did not believe that would be consistent with a dissociative spell or somebody who was disorganized or psychotic, or even having a dissociative amnesia, that they would be able to recall their address and state it in a text message, which again requires the language centers of the brain, the visual centers, the hand-eye coordination, and the recall memory to do that.
And then I believe that you referenced in your report some of the messages with Thad, and the jury's had the benefit of hearing him testify, but he actually offered to call 911, and at some point she tells him, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. To me, that would strongly suggest that she understood the nature and quality of what happened, and that she understood the wrongfulness, because if he were to call 911 and paramedics show up, then she would be seen with a dead body there. And
I want to talk about Brooks' statement just a little bit regarding Carly's shooting and attempting to kill Heath. What particularly about Brooks' statement led you to believe that Carly knew right from wrong and had specific intent for that crime?
Yes, I will answer. I do want to clarify that the video footage and the text messages, that's all my opinion off of my observations of all this. When we get into Brooks' statements, that is my opinion based on somebody else's statement. So it has to be taken with a grain of salt there. But if what Brooks says is true, suppose reportedly, per her statement, Carly asked her, "Are you squeamish around dead bodies?" Which certainly, if that is true, suggests that Carly understood at the time the nature and the quality of what she had done, and even that somebody else may have different feelings about it, which shows a higher level of appreciation that I can not only know my feelings, but I can understand how you might feel. And then, do you want me to continue on as far as
Yes,
Brooks?
please.
Reportedly, if what Brooks says is true, Carly assured Brooke not to worry about the cameras, that they had already been taken care of. And so that would suggest to me that Carly appreciated, understood the wrongfulness of her, what she had done, and therefore was trying to avoid detection.
And then she also made some comment to Brooke about, I put 3 in my mom and I got 3 more waiting for my stepdad when he gets home.
Yeah. If that is true, that would strongly suggest that Carly, at the time of the offense, understood the nature, quality, and wrongfulness of what she had done.
I want to back up just a little bit to Dr. Clark's diagnoses of Carly. I diagnosed her as being bipolar, schizophrenic tendencies, disassociation, and eating disorder. So we've gone through, Dr. Pickett, how you, other than the eating disorder, you do not agree with his diagnoses. But for argument's sake, let's say that all of his diagnoses are proper. That Carly did suffer from bipolar, some form or symptoms of a schizophrenic-like situation and possibly a disassociation. That does not mean that she is insane, correct?
Correct. As I was explaining earlier, having a threshold diagnosis is just your ticket to even consider insanity. Without a diagnosis, you cannot even consider the other prongs of the standard. You have to have that just to even be considered. That in and of itself does not equal insanity, in my opinion, from what I know based on the state standard. I have, from experience, I have patients who have schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and they know when we talk, hey, all right, you're going home soon. You know you don't need to do this or that. You take your.
Yeah, eBay.
I'm gonna be the new kingpin of Gotham.
Overall conclusion regarding those diagnoses and how that might have affected her on that day.
Yes. So based on record review, she was diagnosed with adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depressed mood and a single major depressive episode. I agree with those based on the records and what I've reviewed at the time. I think those were reasonable. I also, in addition, felt like she met criteria for generalized anxiety disorder, which includes according to the DSM-5-TR, excessive anxiety or worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months. The individual finds it difficult to control, and they have at least 3 of the following symptoms: restlessness or feeling keyed up or on edge. So they're antsy, they're on edge, they feel restless, being easily fatigued. I did not think that one applied. difficulty concentrating or mind going blank. I feel like that could apply to her zoning out, her irritability, it says, muscle tension, and sleep disturbances. And then it says, these cannot be better attributed to a substance or another mental disorder. So for generalized anxiety disorder, she seemed on edge. That's one of the reasons she explained to me that she smoked marijuana, was if she was going to have if she couldn't sleep at night, or if she was going to have a bad day that day, she didn't want to have a nervous breakdown at school, she might smoke marijuana to help with her anxiety and nervousness. The mind going blank, that may explain her zoning out. In psychiatry, we kind of try to find diagnoses that explain most of the symptoms, and the generalized anxiety disorder is pervasive. I mean, it goes back to when she was a child, talking with Annette Bryant about adjustment and anxiety and the issues she was having with her dad. So on edge, hence she used marijuana, mind going blank, the zoning out spells, irritability, and the sleep disturbances. All of those are included in generalized anxiety disorder. So I felt like, based on the DSM-5-TR, she met criteria for that, and it would explain a lot of her symptoms. Also, cluster B traits. So people are typically hesitant to diagnose a personality disorder in an adolescent, because the brain is still developing, there's hormones involved, and it can be stigmatizing, and it takes time to really get to know that person. They have to have a pervasive pattern. I looked through years and years and years of records, decade of record, back to 2011. So 2011 to 2024. So yeah, over a decade. I felt like that gave me the ability to look at things over a long period of time. Again, I'm not going to diagnose her with a personality disorder, but she does show some emerging cluster B traits. In personality disorders, which are common, there's different clusters that get grouped together based on different things. She shows some what's called cluster B, which includes borderline personality, antisocial personality, narcissistic personality, and histrionic personality. I think her narcissistic personality shows, especially when she talks to her therapist about, I get tired of these students who they just, they sleep through this good teaching, and it's in a derogatory tone. When she talked about this voice that's condescending towards other people, it did not come across to me as a legitimate auditory hallucination, but more so maybe some narcissistic traits and condescension towards others. In her journal, she talks about, well, when you read this one day, maybe I'll, make the nuclear bomb. Not that I plan to, but herself as this child genius that she described based on her school records, which I agree with. She might be. You'd need intellectual testing to formally prove that, but her grades certainly suggest that she's very talented and gifted. But the cluster B traits, the most important one is the borderline. So borderline personality and bipolar disorder commonly get confused. Commonly. This, because both of them have the mood lability, the ups, the downs, the ups, the downs. Both of them have that, but they have a different cadence. And bipolar disorder, like I said earlier, bipolar 1, 7 days, bipolar 2, 4 days, and then depressed for 2 weeks. Importantly, in borderline personality, your mood lability can be minute to minute, hour to hour, and it's often related to the circumstances around you. And it's often seen in people some of these personality disorders are often seen in people who have experienced childhood trauma. Borderline personality disorder also traits shows cutting or self-harm. Relationships are also usually very intense with your friends. I love them. I can't live without them. And in her journal, she does talk about, couldn't go a day without them. Some of her friends. I'm so lucky to have them. There's also some devaluation. There's idolization and devaluation in your relationship. So one person you idolize, one person you can't stand. As a clinician, a provider, I often see this where they'll say, Dr. Pickett, You're the best doctor that I've ever seen. You're the only doctor who ever listens to me. But then they'll go see another doctor, or they'll come see me and I'll say, Dr. Pickett, you're the worst doctor. I hate you. I can't stand you. But this other doctor, he's the only doctor. So there's idolization. And with Carly, I believe there may have been some idolization of Ashley and devaluation of Kevin. Then borderline personality also deals with abandonment. Now, when I asked Carly about abandonment, whether that was an issue, she did not make it a big deal. But the way she describes her friendships, I would be skeptical if one of her friends were to abandon her, how she would take that. Would she start cutting more? A lot of patients will trade emotional pain for physical pain. So they'll cut. It's not an attempt to kill themselves, but it's an exchange. And so borderline traits, again, even though she has, and rage, anger, difficulty controlling your anger is another characteristic of a borderline personality. And so their relationships are often up and down, hot and cold, rocky. They can have trouble with their rage. And that was the last theme when I reviewed Dr. LPC Kirk's notes, was they had talked about anger as a secondary emotion, how to appropriately manage that. That was the day before. And so generalized anxiety disorder, which can explain a lot of her nervousness, the restlessness, the zoning out, the sleep disturbances, and anxiety is a overwhelming theme throughout all of her most of her psychiatric records. The borderline personality disorder is much more consistent with traits. I'm not going to label an adolescent with a disorder. And the DSM-5 says, the DSM-5 TR says, all of the traits can become present as early as 12 to 13 years old. They can be present. So even though I'm reluctant, the DSM-5 TR recognizes that you can call them out, you can address them when you see them in unusual cases, which I think this is. Then I also said some psychopathic traits, and I don't use that word lightly, especially in an adolescent. But as I was reviewing her journal, where she says it's okay to be evil, when I see the callous nature in which she left her dead mother to text her next intended victim, and then even use the word honey, that is callous. And it is very concerning to me. In her journal, she often talked about, there were violent themes. I think she may have some with her friends. As I was reviewing Discovery, there's memes about violence. There's often this mix of
Bye, Grandma.
dark humor and violence. I've seen a lot of memes. I won't go into them, but the callousness of which she did that, she has this superficial charm. She's charming. She's very likable. I liked her when I did the interview. I don't like saying any of these things, but I truly believe them. And so she's very charming. Manipulation. She took extensive notes about how to manipulate. And I have somewhere in here, and I can find it, 85 pages of some manipulative behaviors that I document. Okay, here we are. I can find that if we really need to. I'm happy.
That's
to
right,
find
Dr. Pickett. I mean, based off of the evidence that you reviewed and her journals and sketchbooks, and the interviews with the other children, family, and friends, you determined that she had some manipulative behavior.
I did. Real quickly, and I'll move on, I thought there was a lack of remorse. I think she has shown some remorse now.
Your Honor,
tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, the jury, we've been going for a little while. I'm going to let y'all go ahead and take your afternoon restroom break. Okay? All right, record reflect or outside the presence of the jury, you have to approach. I'll hear any objection.
What if better was easier than you ever thought possible? If you could try something different and actually
during this witness exam say that their children's names are being used and
I didn't associate their children with this case. I've done everything I can do to prevent their names from being used. But at some point, the law does not prohibit the witnesses from using their names. That's not the law.
No, Your Honor, but it was in your court order that it wasn't to be put on media.
I think the media is doing their best with this. They're doing their best. I mean, the most important people in this case that everybody seems to have forgotten in this room is the jury. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and both sides take a pregnant pause and think about the jury.
Wow. Just like slammed his desk. He is pissed. Okay. Teresa. Yeah. Jody, that just happened. And go to bed. Yeah. Take a pregnant. I know. Like, what do you even do? Is the judge going to just tell him to stop? Ever? Or not? One is the loneliest number. My point. Pretty sure the other people have already said it. Your riverboat gambling trip. Sure. Fine. Rude. Yay. Holy crap. Talk about beef jerky. Hmm. Dill, my brain is kind of mush right now. Talk about. I don't remember that part. Hmm. Thank you. I will not tell you my real age, though. I am older. I'm older than you, Dill. Yeah, my brain's not working. Yeah, I guess that's kind of true. I feel like, though, he's told them to be prepared and they're just not. You don't even know how old I am. KWOW can stay. Yeah, she can stay. Thank you. Uh-huh. Well, first you'll have to put your age in the chat.
Sorry, Gabby, my computer decided it needed to restart like right off the bat.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yes, I do. My birthday is on Halloween. 33. Same age as Jesus, but no relation. Eh? Mer, 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 mer. What a great birthday. Woot woot.
Some would say I have a good birthday.
Yeah, what is it, like 4th of July or something?
420.
Oh. Right. Hmm.
So what happened? Sorry, it completely restarted, so I couldn't hear anything.
The judge basically freaked out on them and slammed his hands on his desk and walked out, basically. Said, take a 15-minute break.
He's like, I'm tired of this, Grandpa. That's too damn bad.
That's too damn bad. It's like my favorite.
Oh, hey.
Ooh.
All right, you're gonna have to tell me what I missed because I had to turn it down while I was eating dinner.
Well, you'll have to go back. We should go
Gosh.
back because that was pretty good. The judge flipped out and slammed his hands on the desk and then walked out.
At who?
At oh crap, who was it now on the stand?
That same dude?
Yeah.
Dill. Excuse me. Sorry. I just inhaled my dinner. Dill, the answer to your question about how many bottles for tomorrow, however many you think I need. Because when I read that, I took it a totally different way.
I'll hear any objection.
And she meant bottles for Super Baby, not to drink for me.
So if you wanted to switch back to your thing so you don't get any commercials.
Okay. Those were cracking me up.
Yeah, hilarious. I totally forgot that I didn't have YouTube Premium on my computer.
I wasn't even thinking about it until I heard Reba's voice. I'm like, what is happening?
That was great. But where he flips out is, I don't think that's right. I don't think I have the right timestamp. But if you just go live,
Kindle provides thousands of
there we
pre-made
go.
templates that you
Shut it down.
Okay.
Carmen's gone. All right, switch it. Puff Diddy.
Oh, is that dude still on the stand? Ooh, why she look
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, watch here.
Just from here?
I think so, yeah.
I say bottles, and Nuda has 1,000 bottles of baby. Like, good lord. No, thank you. That's a lot.
It's a lot of lubage.
It's a, it's a lot of something.
Memes, I won't go into them, but the callousness of which she did that, she has this
Okay, hear that?
superficial charm. She's charming.
Yeah.
She's very likable. I liked her when I did the interview. I don't like saying any of these things,
Now,
but I
L.
truly believe them. And so she's very charming.
I don't like this guy. I'm
Yeah.
not saying what he's saying is not right, but he really seems to be saying whatever for the prosecutor, for the state.
Yeah. I just want you to see what the judge did because that was pretty funny. To me.
Is this just his look? Or
Yeah, watch it from
here.
Yeah, he is so done. He is just so done.
Yeah, there's something about him. I can't quite put my finger on it. I don't probably want to put my finger on it. But I just I don't like him. That look.
He is so pissed.
Like or else out the presence of the jury, you have to approach, I'll hear any objection. You can object from there.
You know, if it sounds okay.
I just wanted to make people aware that both SK's parents and BG's parents have texted me during this witness's exam to say that their children's names are being used, and
I didn't associate their children with this case. I've done everything I can do to prevent their names from being used. But at some point, the law does not prohibit the witnesses from using their names. That's not the law.
No, Your Honor, but it was in your court order that it wasn't to be put on media.
I think the media is doing their best with this. They're doing their best. I mean, the most important people in this case that everybody seems to have forgotten in this room is the jury. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and both sides take a pregnant pause and think about the jury.
What's a pregnant pause?
I don't know, but
9 months? I don't.
Sorry, I asked.
just hit that limit today where I'm just beyond, like, I don't even know.
Now you know how I feel every day.
Oh
It should say court is on a pregnant pause.
Yes, it should.
And he
Help
comes
me.
in and makes sense.
You should put Carmen where Jody is because Carmen's actually on the camera.
I have forgotten how to do that. Oh, I did it.
I did it.
Oh, you did it? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Never used this thing in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Take it back.
Thank you.
I just want to say, hey, Judge, what's a pregnant pause, Your Honor, kind sir? I'm not asking him a thing. The attorney was sort of like, pregnant pause? What do you think that means?
Oh, Bri Bear, what up?
Hey, Bri. Wondering, has he said anything like we're going to closings tonight? Probably not, since it's
Last question was, that's all right, Dr. Pickett, based off the evidence that you reviewed her journals and scratchbooks and interviewed with other children, family, and friends, you determined that she exhibited some manipulative behavior.
Oh, God. Does that just mean he just went out and got someone pregnant and came back?
He went out, Oprah'd it. You get pregnant. You get pregnant.
Now she's pausing. She's pausing to think about it. Just like, dang it.
Oh, my God. Teresia.
It's like, got me again. Well,
why is his ties always orange? What is
orange?
Dr. Pickett, we were discussing the diagnoses that you have
Sorry.
rendered about
We have
Carly,
corrected you.
and we left off, you were talking about manipulative behavior. Were there any other diagnoses that you attributed to Carly?
That's because you're supposed to be sleeping.
Yes,
exactly?
I didn't finish the my thoughts.
No,
on the
pretty sure you were
psychopathic
done.
Traits. There's a few other characters
Yeah.
I'd like to just say real quickly.
Still not.
About the manipulative behavior, I found one example. There's others. But I thought, her journal that talked about the emotional manipulation and the happy hurting. I thought that was concerning. She describes herself in the journal as melodramatic, and she asked herself at one point, am I just pretending just so my friends will feel obligated to comfort and care for me? About her emotional state, I thought that was manipulative. I thought about the fact that she didn't tell some of her, like LPC Kirk, about some of her marijuana use and such. I thought that was hiding and manipulative. And then when we were talking, sometimes she kind of de-emphasized certain things, and I kind of felt like I was being, pushed, not pushed towards a certain diagnosis, or I thought it was manipulative. So that's where I got that.
Kind of like you,
Another
sir.
psychopathic trait is like poor behavioral control. So I looked through a lot of things. I mean, obviously, the incident is a poor behavioral control, and doing the there's other things. The knife incident with the school, where she initially said it was for somebody told her to. She told me that a friend told her to bring it, but then after reviewing the discovery, it said that she had told them it was for protection and mentioned some high school students. And then some promiscuous sexual behavior. There was a sex toy found at the scene. There was the nipple piercings. And so I'm certainly not diagnosing a 15-year-old as a psychopath. I'm just saying there are some concerning traits. And given me trying to rationalize why did this happen, that played a factor.
Not
to some
that,
degree.
not the
And
one
then
that's
lastly,
questioning him.
I agreed with some other
Isn't that
specified
cross now?
trauma and stress-related disorder, like an adjustment disorder.
This is still the state.
I think, yeah.
Oh, wait. There's a defense. There's two female attorneys. One's for the state, one's for the defense. Then there's two male attorneys for both sides. So I can't state. Okay. State. Yep. State. That's who it is.
Disorder with prolonged duration of more than 6 months without
one or the other.
prolonged duration of the stressor, which basically adjustment disorder.
50-50.
Type of trauma-related disorder.
And considering
got
all
nothing.
of those diagnoses, what
We're just
what
here.
was your final conclusion? We talked about it kind of.
I
at the
don't
beginning,
know.
we'll come back to it. Your final conclusion about
And
whether or
she's
not
younger.
Carly meets the standard of McNaughton insane in the state of Mississippi.
So all of those diagnoses gets me to consider McNaughton. So she's got the ticket, she meets the threshold to consider. So I considered it, but her actions, for which I observed on the video and reading on the text messages and reading all the discovery and understanding what seems to be the context, in my opinion, her actions strongly demonstrate that she understood the nature, quality, and wrongfulness of her actions on that day. And therefore, in my opinion, the ultimate decision is for the fact finders, but my opinion is that she does not meet Mississippi's standard for insanity.
And is that opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty?
Yes, it is.
Attorney Witness, Your Honor.
Here comes Cross, finally. Gee whiz.
About ready to start a pew-pew if he didn't shut up.
Wow.
You can't say that on YouTube.
Please don't.
But I'm pretty sure we're all feeling that way. Say it how it is.
Whoops. Sorry.
Getting a refill?
Sorry. I gotta mute this before I die.
I may beg the court's indulgence for just a second to get organized. Your Honor.
Oh, goodness.
Good
Poor
afternoon, Dr.
bear.
Pickett, or may it please court. Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a few questions for you, I guess, regarding your report and everything that you've just testified.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I know you're a forensic psychiatrist, and I know you're, I think you're qualified in emergency room technique or as emergency room doctor, as a psychiatrist, and as a forensic psychiatrist.
Yes, sir.
My understanding is, when did you become a psychiatrist? I guess when you become a forensic, or when I say psychiatrist, a forensic psychiatrist, that's when you become board certified. Is that sort of, or do you just take the classes and then you get board certified?
So you complete your psychiatry residency first.
I don't
graduate
know.
from that. You get a degree that you're a psychiatrist, but at that time you're just a general psychiatrist. You still have to take whatever state boards to be licensed. Then you apply for a fellowship. It's a very competitive process. You get selected, and then you are a fellow. You're not on your own, but you are seeing forensic related cases under the supervision of your supervisor.
And when did you become, become an official forensic, board certified forensic psychologist or psychiatrist?
So I graduated from my fellowship in forensic psychiatry in June of 2023. And then I believe I took my boards around September. No, what was that? 20. Yeah. That would have been September 2023 when I got my board certification. But you're doing forensic cases, that would have started in July of 2022.
Okay, so you've been doing forensic cases since July of 22, which is approximately 2 years.
Approximately, yes, sir.
Okay. And you actually became board certified in, I guess you said October?
I'm estimating
Is
September.
she talking about the
2023.
buzz?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
It was-
less than it'd be about a year from now, right around about a year. Okay.
Approximately, since I was board certified. Yes, sir.
It vibrated against my computer.
And okay. You don't have a specialty in child or adolescent psychiatry, correct?
No, sir.
Okay.
Ooh.
And wouldn't you agree that anytime you're dealing with kids,
No.
adolescents, there's little nuances and differences?
Today's only Thursday.
Situations, correct?
I think there's certainly subtle, little, as you said, little nuances. But as a general psychiatrist, we do have experience with pediatric and adolescents. We do at least a year in our residency of exclusively child and adolescent. So we do get trained on it in residency. And as a general psychiatrist, you commonly can see whatever age you feel comfortable with. You don't have to be board certified to see it, is what I'm
Right.
trying to say.
Not saying you don't. I guess my question is, I'm sort of getting into, there's an actual, I guess, board certification, which is for children and adolescents.
Yes, sir.
And so how many more years of school would you have to go to get to that point?
That's 2 years, I believe.
Okay. And that sort of, you get all the specialties and everything, so you know the nuances and how everything works. Is that correct?
I think they have more training in it. I agree with that.
And Dr. Clark, who you watched testify yesterday, he's board certified in children and adolescent psychiatry, correct?
According to what he said, yes, sir.
Yes. And are you doubting what Dr. Clark said about his qualifications?
No.
Okay. So he would have more, I guess, training and stuff in as far as, I guess, with children and adolescents, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he's also, I think, been practicing for, I think it was 25 or 30 years, correct?
I think that's what he said. Yes, sir.
And so he would have a lot more experience than you do, because you're, I guess, where you're at for forensic psychiatry just started about a year ago. Would that be correct?
What part of that are you asking is correct? That my training was just a year ago, or that he has a lot more experience than me?
He has a lot more experience than you.
Yeah.
Okay. And in fact, he's even taught psychiatry, correct?
That's what he said.
Okay. Now, Wes, I want to go through this. It seems like, have you ever heard of the term confirmational bias?
To some degree, yeah.
Okay. And isn't it true that what confirmational bias is you get something in your head and then you go out and you start trying to prove it, as opposed to figuring out what the big picture is, you sort of narrow it down and you try to get a specific result. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I think that would be the definition of confirmation bias.
Now, do we have a little bit of confirmational bias in this situation?
Honestly, I do not believe so. I told the prosecutors that I'm going to be as objective as I can, but once I start reviewing discovery and learning about this case, depending on what those point me to, will determine my opinion. And once my opinion falls on the side, then I'm going to, advocate my opinion.
Well, there's some things that I guess where I'm not going to go through everything as far as your report and everything, because I'm not a psychiatrist, and you know a whole lot more about psychiatry than I can ever ask you questions about. But you would agree with me, Dr. Clark testified that he had diagnoses that were very different from the ones that you had today.
Yes, sir.
And you would also agree that Dr. Clark has a lot more experience, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, there's some things that I wanted to go over, because you talked about, I guess, that there wasn't really anything that led you, that could be used, that would lead you to believe that she was suffering from, I guess what Dr. Clark called wasn't delusional. What was it? What did he term it? What was her condition?
He said many things.
Yeah, wasn't it dissociative or something? What was it? What was he saying that she was suffering from?
I don't want to speak for Dr. Clark, but I believe he was saying something along the lines.
Disassociation, maybe? Okay, is that what he was saying, that she was in a state of disassociation?
I think he said that.
Okay. And so you don't believe that, well, one, let me back up. You said you're not really familiar with that, correct?
I said I'm not the nation's leading expert on it, but we get trained on it in residency. I've read about it in the DSM-5 TR. I've read various articles about it preparing for this. So,
have you had people that have been under this affliction before?
Very few.
Very few. And it's not something that's common.
It's not.
And I think something that's important is you said this is a very unusual case. This is a rare case. Wouldn't you agree on that?
I think it's unusual for.
Well, Kelly, I just got back myself, and we missed the judge getting pissed, telling the lawyers basically get it together, go take a pregnant pause, which has now become a joke, and he's really done. But otherwise, this guy's just been rambling. Finally, are on cross. It just started. Yes, that's it. Judge had to see it. He told the jury, or he told the attorneys last night at the end of the day that because they had lost some witness, they had lost some exhibits, and he wanted to make sure that he had his back. So he said, I'm going to chastise both sides right here, because once you hand your exhibits into me, they're mine. And if I do not get my exhibits back, you will be arrested. I was like, oh my gosh. This judge, you don't play. I love it.
15-year-old to shoot and kill their mother. And it's unusual in that aspect. It is not unusual as far as the psychiatric diagnoses and mental health based on review of her records, in my opinion. That's actually very common.
So the situation is very unusual. You don't see this very often. And the fact pattern is really unusual in this, isn't it?
Can you elaborate a little bit on what you mean by fact pattern?
Well, did you ever see any violent tendencies at any time? Were you able, in your, I guess, review of everything, were you able to see any violent tendencies that she had? And I'm talking about Carla.
I'm simply trying to recall some of the journal entries because some of them had negative themes that I would say, and they idolized characters who were violent. And so did she have some predilection towards that, or based on her personal journal? Yes. But did I see any from her? No, I did not.
And the journal was what that you saw that she talked about movies and different things like that. That's what that led you to believe that she has violent tendencies.
In her journals, she talks about happy hurting with her emotional manipulation. She talks about she really liked the Pinocchio movie, and her favorite parts were when the bomb dropped on the church that killed Carlo and Mussolini. And she referred to that she might one day be famous for making a nuclear bomb. Not that she had in plans to do that, and it's okay to be evil, and she chooses fire because it is powerful, beautiful, and deadly. So no, I did not see her do violent acts aside from the offense, but I did see a theme of concerning things, and many of them had violent themes.
And that's it. That what you just read off, that was it.
I do not believe that's it. That's what I could find as a needle in a haystack of an 85-page report, but there were themes of that.
Now you said you brought this up, and you said life's greatest, what is it, illusion is innocence.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a big deal of that, right? And you said that you thought that was, I don't say inappropriate, but her putting it in her journal caused you concern.
To some degree, yes, especially given the context of where we're at now.
Do you know where that comes from? It comes from a video game. That's it. It's a video game. It's called Skyrim.
Yeah.
No clue, did you? You had no clue that that's where it was coming from. You thought? Did you think she made it up?
I am familiar with the game Skyrim as a gamer myself. Her screen name was Lazy Assassin. That was her online screen name too. If we're going to talk about video games and violence and Skyrim.
Give me a freaking break. My son's gaming handle used to be have that second word as the end of it. I won't say the first part of it, but he certainly was not anybody that was going to go do anything like this to anybody at any time and anywhere. And now that he's 32 and a dad, it's hilarious because it's still his gaming handle or whatever you gamers call it. I don't know.
Could you imagine him going into GameStop with Super Baby just in his arms? Like, oh, it's that. And the lady just looking up at him like, excuse me?
You say what now? Dude, this guy needs to chill. Is your job really worth attacking a kid for? Just give us the facts. Don't be a simp for the state. And he is. And I think this defense attorney is doing a good job of dismantling him.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear all of it. I heard a lot of it. I missed like 30 minutes of it.
And Skyrim is an adult game.
So
there are some things in there that I don't think are appropriate for a 14-year-old, but that's just my personal opinion.
And kids play that all the time. And I agree with you. There's probably things that are inappropriate. but that's the game. Did you not recognize it?
No.
Now, there's also, I think you would agree with me that there's a lot of, in her journals, there's a lot of, I guess, quotes from songs or lyrics from songs and things like that. And that's all pretty benign, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, the one thing, and this is where I get into this confrontational bias a little bit. Every time there's something that points to a different position or for what Dr. Clark brings up, you say you're discounting the journal, that where she says that she's hearing voices and all this kind of stuff, and she's hearing voices before this incident. You're like, I'm going to discount that. That doesn't really count. But then you turn around and want to use stuff like this and say, yeah, I'm taking these little statements and it's violent tendencies. So why is it that you're sort of, how you say, cherry picking the different parts of it that suit you?
I would have to disagree with that. I'm bring up a few highlights that are concerning to me. But also in my report, I mentioned that in her sketchbook, she has some sketches of little ponies. That wouldn't support that she's violent. That's included in my report. And also, some of the journal stuff is inconsistent in that she mentions, feeling numb and things like that in January in her journal. But then come February, she tells that to the nurse practitioner and they attribute it to her Zoloft. And so some of the things in her journal, are conflicting with what I'm hearing from other sources. So I don't put a whole lot into it. I'm certainly not basing my decision about her insanity on those things. But to even consider insanity, you have to have the prerequisite threshold diagnosis. And therefore, I did a deep dive into an adolescent's journal, but that was only one piece.
Now, the biggest thing that you said led you to believe that, caused you concern was that you were not seeing, I guess, any reporting from either of the two. I guess it's Kirk and the other therapist, and that caused you some concern because you were saying that normally, individuals are going to confide in that person. Would you agree?
Generally, most people would confide in their mental health professional about things that they were concerned about regarding their mental health.
Yeah. Now, we had some testimony from one of the therapists today, and she said that it had taken her, I guess, a year and a half before Carly had opened up about some issues. And I think with these people that she started seeing in January, that would have only been about 3 months of seeing people, correct? So there wasn't a lot of history with therapists between, I guess, when she went in January 15th to when the incident happened. Would you agree on that?
I agree that there was only those two within that period, but there are older records from a therapist that were also reviewed in my report.
And she wasn't having these issues back then, or correct?
No, and that was actually closer to the traumatic event.
Now, are you sure that's the traumatic event? Because that's one of the things, you go to the traumatic event. You can have other things that cause you to have a traumatic event, correct?
You can.
Yeah. So when you're saying that there's a traumatic event in her life and it's whatever happened, it's 5 years ago, we really don't even know if that's what it was, correct?
We don't, but by talking to her and asking about her history, it does seem like when she's talking that was a significant trauma. The Kevin, the neglect, the abuse, and her sister dying at a young age, and her parents divorcing. Those were big. And she hasn't mentioned anything bigger than that to me, or that I have seen in the records.
Now, she was diagnosed with that. I guess it would be a major, I guess, psychological issue in January. Was that correct?
I believe LPC Kirk diagnosed her with adjustment disorder, with mixed anxiety and depressed mood, and the mental health nurse practitioner Lieber agreed with that. Also diagnosed her with adjustment disorder and said that she met criteria for a single episode of major depressive disorder.
Yes, and I want to say they, medication was prescribed, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it was never discontinued, correct?
No, sir.
And when we're saying discontinued, I'm not trying to, play loose and fast with my question. It is, she's continued to have medication to this day since January of January of this year until currently, as far as you know, correct?
I know she had it up until the incident. I have heard some of the things that she's been on in jail or being detained. I don't know the specifics of all that.
Now, in jail, she was diagnosed with a psychological disorder and treated with high doses of antipsychotics, correct?
I would say it's a moderate dose. I think it's 10 of Abilify, Dr. Clark said. I mean, when I'm at the state hospital, now these are adults, I do go up much higher doses, 20 milligrams even, maybe even 30 at times. So 10 milligrams, adolescent, seems moderate. One of the current is, I believe she was on Celexa in jail. So Celexa, that one's a little concerning to me because Lexapro and Celexa has Lexapro in it, essentially, in a very basic term. Citalopram is two mirror images, the R citalopram and the S citalopram. They're mirror images. It gets into biochemistry, blah, blah, blah. But it has both in it. The Lexapro is just the S-citalopram portion. So to me, if you're really concerned that the medication was causing some issues, having her on citalopram, Celexa, which is still Lexapro, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Now, the Abilify, we use that for many things. And that could explain some of the,
Well, and this is one thing, Dr. Clark had explained it yesterday. And he said that, yeah, your Celexa has the Lexapro, but it has the other, whatever the other qualities, and it affects the brain a little bit different. So some people that don't do well on Lexapro do well on Celexa. Would you agree on that?
I would recommend if somebody had reportedly a bad experience on Lexapro, then you shouldn't use the SSRI that is as close as possible to it and literally contains the same medicine. I think that would be a bad idea.
And so again, that's where you differ with Dr. Clark.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk about, I think you were talking about Dr. Hardy's evaluation of Kevin Gregg.
Yes, sir.
And that's a person you have never, ever seen. You have seen 3 pages of, was it medical records I think you testified to?
Yes, sir.
And you're wanting to basically say that the doctor that has seen him is wrong on his diagnosis, that actually saw him. I know you said it was only for a few hours according to the records. 1 hour for the records that you saw.
Total for all 3 visits was 1 hour.
And so you're saying that he got it wrong, and you don't know if there's even more medical records, do you?
I've asked for the other medical records. I wanted the other medical records because I really wanted to confirm or deny whether Mr. Kevin Gregg actually legitimately has one of these mental disorders or whether it's just substance abuse.
So the way I got it and the way your testimony was, and maybe I could be wrong, but it seemed like you were saying you don't want to say, or you, first of all, we were dealing with bipolar, and evidently there's a heredity issue with bipolar.
Yes, sir.
And so you were wanting to say that Kevin Gregg really doesn't have bipolar. Therefore, the heredity part of the prong that would go towards Carly doesn't exist.
I would say yes. If he doesn't legitimately have bipolar disorder, then it makes it less likely that Carly has it.
And so your reasoning is that you want to make another diagnosis over a doctor that actually saw the individual and diagnosed them with bipolar.
I don't want to, but as my job entails, I have to look at the details. And people are misdiagnosed frequently. I know this because I work at the state hospital and these patients come to me and reportedly they have a diagnosis of this or that. And we kind of go through their history and we're like, no, it actually seems more consistent with this. So it is standard to question previous doctors on their records, especially when they're so sparse, especially when there's a big history of drug abuse that can make you look manic, that can make you look psychotic. I wouldn't be doing my job if I just accepted any piece of paper that says somebody has a diagnosis.
So even though there is a diagnosis, a valid diagnosis from a doctor, and you don't have anything to overturn it, you're like, I'm not accepting it. It's basically my understanding.
I disagree with the diagnosis based on extensive review of Mr. Kevin Gregg per all the records, Ashley's description of him, Carly's description of him, grandparents' description of him to the deputy as I was watching the video. Anybody that knew him knew he was addicted to many substances, and he was prescribed Adderall, Klonopin, and Ambien. If I have somebody with bipolar disorder, I'm not going to prescribe them Adderall because that can really push them into a manic episode. And when I reviewed Dr. Hardy's records, he did not justify. If I have a patient that comes to me and this is our first interview, typically I will say, according to the records I've reviewed, Mr. Johnny has schizophrenia because he had delusional thoughts, he had disorganized thinking, he had auditory hallucinations, and here's the records I based that off of. And Dr. Hardy did not do any of that. And actually, his substance abuse was minimized in those records. And so I just don't believe that Kevin may have been as forthcoming with Dr. Hardy, and he may not have had all the records.
Now, what is Thorazine?
It's an antipsychotic.
And that would be something that that was prescribed to Kevin Gregg by Dr. Hardy.
I don't know everything Dr. Hardy may have prescribed him. I know the ones that were very concerning.
And you didn't see that one? You didn't see that?
I don't remember.
What about, I guess it's Respira?
Risperdal?
Yeah, what's that?
That's an antipsychotic.
Okay, that was prescribed to Kevin Gregg by Dr. Hardy, which would be consistent with what's that treating?
We use antipsychotics for behavior. So if somebody comes in and they are acting erratic, violent, aggressive, yelling, screaming, throwing fits, hurting people, we often use mood stabilizers and antipsychotics. So just because somebody's on an antipsychotic does not mean they have a psychotic illness or bipolar disorder.
Now, did you never looked at the medical records from the jail, correct?
I looked at the ones that were sent to me from Region 8, and I glanced over them. I didn't necessarily put a lot of weight on them, only because I am evaluating her sanity at the time of the offense. And what she says to people now that cannot be objectively confirmed, I can't see it and do it in myself and really see that I see this without such giant secondary gain. I'm real skeptical of those things, and so I didn't put a lot of weight into them.
Because the way I understand it is, she gets diagnosed in January with with a major situation, however you want to call it. It was a one-time kind of deal.
Yes, sir.
And then you were in here when one of the witnesses disclosed that Carly and her talked about Carly hearing voices. Remember that?
I do.
Okay. And so that happened before the situation happened on the 19th. And then you had in the journal, it talked about hearing voices. And I think that was on the 12th of March, which was right before the situation, correct?
Well, a few things I'm skeptical about is the friend. I believe they're still friends, is what was said yesterday, and that they still communicate to some degree. And sometimes ideas can be implanted after the fact and people don't know. So I'm real skeptical of that because of the large secondary gain and the things that have been consistent with malingering. The journal article for the 12th, when I see people that have schizophrenia and they are suffering with these auditory hallucinations that they do not want, they do not like, that bother them, they usually do not describe them as quite silly, and they do not describe them as ravenously screaming at each other. And thankfully, physical altercation is not fruitful. That's not how they describe it.
How would a 14-year-old describe it?
I think she would go to her mother and say, "Mom, I'm hearing voices." And the mother, especially if she was as involved as Ashley, would have taken her and made sure that the mental health providers knew about it.
Well, I think all the testimony is that she didn't want her mother to know about that, correct? Isn't that what all the testimony is?
I haven't heard all of the testimony. I've heard the last 2 days.
I mean, you've been for the last 2 days. I think the testimony has been, especially you heard everything that Dr. Clark said. Everything was that the mother did not want to, or Carly didn't want the mother to know about her, I guess, issues. Did you? I think you even talked to her in jail about this very thing, didn't you?
I never talked to her in jail. I talked to her here in the courtroom doing my evaluation.
I'm
She
sorry,
did talk.
It's connected. So
Okay, my impression was that she wanted to hide, especially some of the more negative things from her mother, the burner phone, the marijuana, talking to the boy. It's not my impression that she was trying to hide her mental health from her mom. I think her mother, from everything I could gather, was very aware of her mental health, and therefore her mother insisted on taking her to seek help.
Now, you did bring up a good point, and you brought it up a couple times, the individual, like clients, patients, however you want to characterize it, a lot of times they're not forthcoming with everything to people like psychiatrists, psychologists, individuals that are therapists, people like that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I think you heard from one of her therapists today that she was having to drag stuff out, that she was almost about to, you know.
See you, Kelly. Have a good night. Hopefully this will end tomorrow, but the user formerly known as Nidawow says no. Darn it. And hopefully Gabby didn't make you make too big of a mess with your soda.
It was worth it.
Hey, we need to switch to another person because I'm not getting a lot of, I'm not pulling stuff out of you. I'm not helping you a whole bunch. Do you remember that?
My impression was that Dr. Kirk felt that she was doing fairly well and was considering discharging her, or referring her elsewhere if necessary. But at that last visit, pried her, kind of pushed to talk about the stuff with her mother, and that's when the rage and the anger came up.
Now, at one point, Carly, and this is stuff, again, put in her journal and said that she had a psychological or psychotic break. Do you remember that part in the journal?
Yes, sir.
And you said you didn't put a lot of credence into it because it was something that she wrote. And I think you said the journal was, you know, she was using it as sort of like theatrical and things of that nature. Is that sort of your take
Yeah,
on
I
it?
said there's a mixture, seems like, of what might be truth and what seems theatrical.
Now, the disassociation, which we were just talking about, you're not really, you said you know about it, but you're not an expert, and you said you have seen it in rare cases. We agreed that this was a rare case, correct? Or your words, I can't
It's
remember.
an unusual case in that a 14-year-old killed her mother. It's not unusual in that her mental health, as far as anxiety and depression, those are common.
And Dr. Clark had gone through and spelled out exactly how disassociation works and how it could work with her, how it was working that on the 19th, correct?
Yes, and I enjoyed the academic exercise of talking about dissociative spells, but in my opinion, what Carly did that day was not consistent with dissociative spells at all because of so much specific intent.
And just getting into the specific intent that you're talking about, if you're in the dissociative, I guess, situation, you wouldn't be knowing what you're doing with all that. You can be doing that, and I think the research shows that you can do that, correct?
I think the literature is very sparse on this. I think the literature talks, there are case reports or examples of violence being completed in a dissociative state. But again, based on my review of the video and Carly's text messages at the time, it, in my opinion, shows way too much intentional, high-level executive functioning to be in this unknown dissociative spell and yet do so many specific things.
Right, and it sort of goes back. You're talking about. I think what the literature says is that happens. It's rare. This is a rare case to begin with, and then you have more, I guess, rarity in a lot of the facts. So, I mean, it's possible that happened, correct?
It's in the realm of possibility.
Yes.
But I have to say that what's a lot more common and the literature supports is arguably the most commonly malingered thing is malingering amnesia, particularly after a homicide. And that's much more common than what you might be able to possibly do in a rare dissociative state.
Right, and that's where you go back in and you start looking at sort of different things that had happened as far as you're looking in the journals, you're talking to the friends, you're seeing things like that. One thing that on the jail records that was very important was it showed that she had said that she was having hallucinations. I think more than, I think she did that in at least a couple months, and they gave her a Abilify. I think you remember that.
Were they visual or auditory hallucinations?
Auditory hallucinations, I believe. Yeah, auditory hallucinations.
That she reports.
She reports to the medical staff at the jail. They give her a Abilify, and then after a few months, it gets better.
That's all per Carly.
Yeah, but that would also be consistent that because you can have a I guess a episode, a psychiatric episode, and it doesn't all start at one time. It builds, correct?
Cases vary. Some people, it shows subtly and then progresses. other
Don't like this
people
guy.
may do a substance and then it causes a break or something like that. So it can vary.
It can vary, and you can, in this situation, there was stuff that was out there before this happened. And then we have the 19th of March, and that's when this situation happens. And then right on the back end is where you have, I guess, she's telling the person in jail, this is what's going on, and they prescribe her this medication, and then it gets better. Did you talk to her about that, about the hallucinations no longer being present?
I don't remember us getting into that too much. Sometimes I try not to interject or implant. I don't want to say, hey, are you having this? Are you having that? I want them to voluntarily tell me, because I don't want to implant ideas in people's heads. And so most of the time, if they're really experiencing these things, when I see my patients with schizophrenia at the hospital, they gladly tell me and eagerly tell me and beg for me to help them.
Well, you keep saying when you see your clients at the hospital who have schizophrenia, you didn't diagnose her with schizophrenia, correct?
No, sir. I'm just using schizophrenia as a standard psychotic illness.
Well, when you saw her, I guess it was on the 30th of August, not too long ago.
Yes, sir.
She's competent. She answered all your questions, all that kind of stuff. There wasn't any problems, correct?
Correct.
She's lucid. I mean, she was on the 30th. She was 100% fine.
Yes, sir.
The big question is how she was back on the 19th of March, correct? That's what you're here for.
Yes, sir.
And so right after that, there's records at the jail where she's saying she's having these hallucinations. They're giving her medications. And then it seems that works because she no longer, I think there's some notes that she's no longer having them. So wouldn't that be something that you would want to look at?
It's not necessarily pertinent to how her mind frame was at the time that she killed her mother, especially when I have video footage of her at that time, and I have text messages of her conversations at that time. I know I have all the statements of everybody who knows her way better than me. I have medical records from years, hearing exactly what she says afterwards when there's a big secondary gain.
Well, what about the victim in the case, her stepfather? Her stepfather describes
Hello
her
there.
as, that's not Carly. That's what his testimony was.
Hey, look, it's
And
a dare.
he's the person that actually saw her. And I know you haven't said anything about that, and that would seem that would be something that's very, very important when he's saying she was not in her right mind. And that's when it's happening.
I tried to call him and interview him, and he didn't want to talk to me. But later he called me for about 6 minutes on the phone at the request of Attorney
All
John.
6
We told him
minutes.
it's very limited to Carly's been forgetting things and zoning out. I wanted to talk to him and hear his side.
Did you not hear the testimony?
I didn't hear his. I was only here for yesterday and today's.
Okay. Because he said that would this have any impact is if he's saying that she did not look like she knew who Heath was.
Well, she called his name 3 times when she knew he was coming home, and she texted him and said, hey, when are you coming home? So I find it hard to believe that she didn't know who he was. Now, him being in a shocked state, looking in her eyes, if she's in a shocked state too, because she's about to shoot him or attempting, I don't know how much he could decipher accurately at that time.
So his opinion on her state and how she looked and things like that really doesn't play with you very well.
I would take it into consideration. I do not think it would change my opinion.
And I mean, I just so the jury knows, there's nothing that I can say up here when I'm asking you questions that's going to change your opinion, correct?
Bingo.
If you were to give me some objective evidence of things, I would certainly take that into consideration.
You wouldn't just go like what we did with Heath Smiley and just say, no, I don't think that he can make a good determination.
No, I've based my opinion off of the mountain of evidence that I have reviewed, my clinical evaluation of 4.5 hours with Miss Carly, reviewing all the medical records. I have based my opinion on that. And if there was new information that was relevant, I would certainly consider it.
May I beg the court's indulgence?
Walks up and punches him in the face. No more questions.
Or he walks up, he's like, "Sir, I feel pregnant. That pregnant pause must have worked."
He's like, oh, look, I just lost 90 pounds.
Psychiatrist, forensic psychiatrist. Do you treat many kids at all?
Not as a general psychiatrist, not as a forensic psychiatrist. As an emergency physician, I frequently treat kids.
Thank you, Adair.
And just dealing with, I guess, your role as a forensic psychiatrist.
Yeah, but Adair, don't use too many, okay?
How many evaluations on adolescents and kids have you done?
As a forensic psychiatrist?
Yes.
Probably my first.
Okay. How many times have you been qualified as an expert to come
That's
in
big.
and give opinions?
I did have to testify in another case on a patient who was bipolar, and the ex-wife was trying to say just because he has bipolar, he couldn't see his kids. And I said, he's doing great. He's taking his med. He could see his kid. I was an expert in that. It wasn't, I mean, it was mental health in the legal system. So I think that would qualify, but that's my only other time.
Okay. So this is your first time in a criminal case.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is your first time doing an evaluation on a 14-year-old.
I'd like to clarify my last answer. This is my first time testifying in a criminal case. I have done competency evaluations and sanity evaluations for patients regarding criminal cases. I just haven't testified in those cases.
Gotcha. Have you done many evaluations of children and adolescents?
No, sir.
May I beg the court's indulgence for a moment again?
All right, question for y'all, because you have to start somewhere. So I'm not like trying to dock him for that, because you do have to start somewhere to get the testimony under your belt to be able to say, I've done 100 cases. They didn't start off that way. As mad as what some of you were yesterday at the defense's expert, who has a ton more experience just in life and in his education and things like that, comparing his testimony yesterday and this guy's testimony today, did it change your mind about, I can't remember the doctor's name, I apologize, the one from yesterday? Did it change your mind any at all about his? Do you still just think that he just wanted to make Carly look good, and then you guys are stuck at this guy just wants to make her look bad? Or did it change your mind at all either way, swayed you either way about her? My whole thing about her situation is I'm stuck on the fact that she went on medication in January, and then less than 3 months later, this incident happened when they were still trying to adjust medication. Also, with the experience that I was telling you yesterday about the person that I know that has mental health issues, they don't always know they're hallucinating. So if they're not, so they don't tell you. They might ask you a question and you know it's not true, but tell them that they're not seeing what they think they're seeing, because to them it's theirs. They don't know it's a hallucination. Also, I can tell you, when this person comes out of those episodes, they don't remember them. So I'm struggling hard with this because there's parts of me that think, oh my gosh, this kid is horrible. Then there's other parts of me that thinks, oh my gosh, this kid just went through something horrible. And I'm not sure which side I come down on yet. I don't like this doctor. I don't know what it is about him. I'm surprised the state picked somebody that doesn't have experience with, that can
Kids.
stack up against the defense's doctor. But I don't know. Curious about all your guys' opinion.
I didn't watch yesterday, so I don't have one.
It's okay. You're forgiven. You had to work.
Here's the elderly people. Those are grandparents.
I'm not sure if that's her mom's parents or her stepdad's parents. I don't know.
Where's her biological dad? Have they ever said?
This is one thing. There were two
He's
other
not really
evaluations
involved,
that were done,
I
and
don't
that's
think.
Dr. Clark and I think Giuliano. Okay, neither one of them came to the conclusion that there was malingering, correct?
Not that I recall.
Okay. We would tender, Your Honor.
All right. I think you did a good job.
I do too. And it didn't go on for 84 years.
You've done more than, or close to over 100 evaluations regarding competency and insanity. Isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Camp asked you about if Dr. Clark had more experience than you. I guess that means he's been practicing longer.
I guess.
I submit to you, there's attorneys that are quite older than I am and have practiced a lot longer than I have that have been disbarred. Does more experience always mean that you're a better doctor?
Not necessarily.
Does more experience mean that you always get the diagnoses right?
No, and I would like to just clarify quickly, even if she has all of these diagnoses, what matters is that just lets you start to consider insanity. Even if
All
she
of
has
these
all of them.
diagnoses.
I'm completely wrong about all my
Exactly.
diagnoses.
No one
She has
asked you, lady.
all the
He's
diagnoses
just
that Dr.
smacking
Clark
that.
has.
You see how he's
In
smacking
my
it, just
opinion, based on
smacking it.
reviewing the video footage, the text messages, the extensive discovery review, her actions at the time
At the
strongly
time.
suggest that she understood the nature, the quality, and the wrongfulness of what she was doing.
And just one more
Amen.
to that. Mr. Camp mentioned that when you evaluated the defendant, I think he said that she was competent and 100% fine. But she actually was claiming to you that at that very moment she was in one of
That's kind of funny. Doesn't she look like Brie?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Other questions, Your Honor.
State have any further witnesses?
The state rules.
No.
This witness may be released.
I was just seeing if she was still here.
By the defense. All right, you can stand down.
I don't really feel like that was the mic drop moment that attorney thought it was.
No.
Yeah.
A lot of them think that they have all these moments, but they're just blah.
I mean, oh, and wouldn't you love to be her colleague?
No, negative.
I've had a lot of attorneys that are older than I am that have been disbarred. Like, wow. I bet you got some people waiting for you in the parking lot.
Yeah, me.
Figuratively speaking.
Missing my Crocs.
But okay, there's a doctor at the top of the class, there's a doctor at the bottom of the class. It doesn't necessarily mean he's the best or he's the worst. But, so, yeah. They're the first to pick apart somebody's experience if it benefits them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But heaven forbid somebody else does it.
Yeah. All right, let's see what he's going to do with all of us poor people.
And the state finally rests, correct?
That's right.
Finally.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's 5:05. I'd ask y'all to be back in the jury room 8:45 tomorrow, ready to go, okay? Everyone remain seated while the jury exits.
Right now.
I feel like he's a really good boxer.
The judge?
Yeah.
Boxing people's ears.
Yep. Oh, her face.
Oh.
Record reflector outside the presence of the jury. Does the
Your hair looks greasy.
motion for motion for directed verdict?
Oh, I'm unmuted. My bad.
Any further arguments?
No, we've already made your own.
All right, the court will again deny the motion for directed verdict. Y'all need a few minutes to gather your stuff for jury instructions.
Briefly, brush your break, and then if we can have about 5 minutes or so.
10-minute recess. We'll do jury.
So he's not gonna let them deliberate today.
No.
No.
No, are you kidding me? He's had enough.
He's had enough period to last him the rest of his life.
Yeah. Everyone, let's take a pregnant pause.
He's like, 5 more minutes and I can retire.
I'm going to make a banner now. BRB, taking a pregnant pause.
I'm not listening to jury instruction discussions.
Absolutely not. I've listened to enough already today.
Welcome to my life.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun. I'm not complaining, but you get a little just slap happy towards the end of the day, and you just can't keep it together. It's impossible.
For sure. Especially, I'm halfway through my water.
Yeah, we're not doing those. And I'm trying to decide how I'm not doing them tomorrow either. Just telling you.
We're not doing them today or tomorrow.
That's correct. We're never doing them. Ever. I have Super Baby tomorrow. So
Super Baby.
And I don't know exactly how I'm gonna do jury watch yet because our verdict watch. Boy, if we could watch that jury. Because I'm going to have her, I don't really just want to like sit here and stare at my screen while nobody's here because verdict watch is boring. So I have to think about it. I may set up a stream and just try to jump on when the verdict comes in. Because who knows? I mean,
if you want to put up a stream and hang out, I'll hang out with you for a little bit.
Okay.
I'll hang out with you too.
Okay. Well, I'll watch it when jury, maybe like when jury instructions get over.
Yeah.
We can do that. Because the artist formerly known as KWOW, that Gabby calls KWOW, doesn't think they're coming back tomorrow with a verdict.
Dun, dun,
It's
dun.
going to be next week. Oh, no. Nope, that was it. That was it, Adair. That was the state's rebuttal. And I don't think they ended on a strong note.
Nope.
I think they ended on a flat tire.
Yep. They
She'll get it. Go ahead.
And they don't have a spare.
I have no spare.
Do you think that she'll get insanity?
No, they haven't closed. So you're correct. I will do closings.
I hope you come in closed.
Close.
Don't you dare say anything, Hugh to Hef.
Okay.
Okay.
They should not have called the last dude. Is that dude? I can't even say what that makes me think of. Hello, Christine. How you doing? How you feeling? Hope you are doing well. hopefully you're going to get some good news back soon.
They have a flight
So
news.
yes, closings. I don't know if he'll do closings before jury instructions or after jury instructions. Please, Lord, let it be after. Just YouTube people, schedulers. Oh, I wasn't here. I thought he had a weird last name. So
Oh, I thought that said something else.
University of the Vajayjay.
Let me check it, Derek, because we go and go and go, and then I don't remember.
Oh, while you're checking, that person's name, that was not a typo.
What person's
What you
name?
texted me this morning.
Oh.
What their last?
Oh,
That's not a typo.
I you guys, I can let's see. I just know she's charged as an adult and she's been in jail on $1 million bond, but I was dumb and did not put what degree she was charged with in my description. I apologize. So this morning I was reading the Indianapolis local news up there, and apparently during last weekend there was a bunch of street takeovers. So they destroyed a bunch of or damaged and destroyed state police cars and IMPD cars. And then today I saw that they had arrested 9 people. And I was just kind of just sliding through the list of names, not like I was going to see anybody I knew. And then I came upon a name. The last name is Shit. SHITT.
I thought I had an S at the end, doesn't it? Does it?
I was like, oh, we don't want to talk. Hush up. I figured it was a typo. Carmen said it is not a typo.
No, because that's what it is. That's in the jail's arrest record.
Okay. So, I thought that guy had a weird last name. That guy has a horrible last name. I mean, can you imagine when you get married?
Isn't it spelled like that?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's spelled just like that. That is how it is spelled.
Shahit.
Mr. Shite?
Excuse me, Mr. Shite.
I mean, they get married, and the guy, the officiant, whoever, turns around and is like, I would like to be the first person to officially introduce Mr. and Mrs. Shit to you. I'm sorry. It's been...
Oh my god.
And then, I mean, and you get your RSVP. And then everybody's like, hey, you going to the shit wedding this weekend?
Oh my god.
There's so much.
They're like, what party are you here for? They're like, the shit party.
Oh, look, it's the shit baby.
Oh my god. I'm literally unalived.
Shit party of 2.
Here lies Mr. Shit. This is why, if you have a bad last name, don't do crimes.
Yeah, I would keep my last name too.
No, but seriously, Carmen's so right. Like, if you have a last name like shits or shit, just hide in your house your entire life. Imagine going to court.
Okay, court calls a case of state versus shit.
I guarantee the judge would look at be like, nope, I read that right.
Oh, God. Like, sorry, I have to take a brief pregnant pause.
I don't know how like attorneys would keep a straight face during a jury trial. Is that right, Mr. Shit? You really did that?
Hey, we're just getting started. We're just getting started, Adair.
Oh, God. I'm literally crying.
My husband once had a defendant who told the police his name was Jose Banana. Hey, and if he got married to Mr. Shit, he could be Jose Banana Shit.
Banana shits? Oh my God.
There's just so many last names you don't want to hyphenate with that. Like all of them. Sorry. I apologize.
I do not apologize.
I don't apologize.
Hey, I can't help what the papers say. The news said it. It has to be true, right? Like, come on. We never lie. Like the internet.
Hilarious? No, you haven't seen anything yet.
I gotta look. I took a screenshot of it because Roberto Shit. That's what his name is. At least it wasn't like Juan Shit.
Juan Shit? Juan Shit?
Because if you said it backwards. I'm done.
Shit, Juan?
The day AJ's channel got canceled.
What a day.
Blame on
It's not
Jody.
even
She's not
Friday
here.
yet.
Oh, but it feels like it.
It does. Sometimes Mondays feel like a Friday stream. You know what I mean? 'Cause it's the beginning of the week.
And then like Wednesday gets here and it feels like it went back to Tuesday.
Yeah. What's up with that?
I don't know. And then
Steve Schmidt.
That's probably Roberto's brother.
I don't know. Roberto and Steve. Maybe Steve is his cousin twice removed.
Could be. I mean, it could just maybe the O doesn't. Maybe it's just Robert. The O's the typo.
Maybe it was Richard.
So his name's
Maybe
Bob
it was
Shit.
Bob Shit. Wait.
I mean, and if
Where's
you're a
George
woman,
in puddles when you need him.
I don't know. And if you're a woman and your first name's Ima, don't marry.
Wow, that was a good one, AJ.
That was a good one.
I'm putting some drums in there for you. Here they come. They're coming your way.
Just don't typewriter me. There, got him.
Got him.
Yeah.
Cheyenne looks like such a boss walking down. She's got her aviators on, and her work attire.
Awesome. She's just
Right.
strutting in the house. You're like, who's that babe?
Pretty much. That's the babe that has my medicine.
Yeah, I was gonna say she's gonna be like, here's your medicine. Get away from me. You're sick.
Mm-hmm.
Don't come near me.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Well, shit.
No, wow, you still here? What's your feeling?
I'm gonna
What's he
hop
gonna
off.
do?
'Cause it's
All
gonna
right.
be
See ya.
loud.
That's
Yeah.
fine. See ya.
Bye.
Bye. I don't know how to
Either.
get off of here. Oh,
I'll
there it is.
just
Bye.
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 Well, I don't know which guy you're talking about, Tanya, but I got the judge muted. No, wow, I probably will never have to, I'll probably have to call you that forever. About you to have a safe time flying around, land surveying, do not crash.
Bye, cute AF.
Oh, did she already leave? No. Jury instructions first or closings first? What's your feelings?
I think if I
Because
never hear jury instructions ever again in my life, it would be so nice.
yeah, but that's going to determine the time that I need to start the stream.
Did they say what time to come that he's coming back in the morning?
9 o'clock.
Okay. So that will be 10 o'clock for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like it's early.
No, but you could do your original regular time that you would normally start.
But yeah, but I will have the baby.
One baby. Yeah, just put up your
I'll kind of go back. This judge, he's so animated. Like, he's just fun to watch.
Yeah, I can see it at the bottom with his hand.
I'm gonna peel you apart, and then I'm gonna peel you apart.
He's like, "No, Mr. Sheets, no."
I'll try to go take a look in the morning after. It just might be his head explodes and then the screen just goes red.
Yeah.
And there is no ending. That is the end, to see if he kind of gives any indication if he's going to do which one he's going to do first.
Plot twist, and then 9 months goes by and we find out what a pregnant pause actually really was.
He's like, I'm back. So, yeah. So probably be a little, maybe like 10-ish, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it up in Discord as well.
Did they start at 9:45 this morning? Because I was driving.
Yes.
So
They were in here. He told the lawyers to come in at that time. So the lawyers were in, but they didn't start right at that time. It was a little bit after, but not too long after.
okay. So if we start at 10, which is noon, then we should be good to go. Okay. All right.
Oh,
I may just watch him on mute because he's funny. But anyway, thank you for covering for me today, Gabby.
Yeah, I mean, it was my very first time ever using StreamYard, so.
And I told you it was easy.
It is pretty easy once you get going with everything. And, but sorry guys, I don't have premium on my computer and you had to go through the commercials.
And Reba was hilarious. When I heard Reba's voice come on, I'm like, what? Oh, that's hilarious. I was
you didn't know? I messaged her to come on the stream.
I was trying to get the dog food down and I was laughing so hard. Hank was just like, give me my food. You made me wait 15 extra minutes.
Which probably feels like 15 years to them.
Oh my gosh. They were horrible. And then they started following me up the stairs when I came back up, and Mr. Hamp was downstairs, and we had spaghetti for dinner, so we had extra. And he said, what do you want me to do with that? And I was like, it's plain, just give it to the dogs. And Hank started following me. And I'm like, Hank, no, go to the kitchen. Go get your spaghetti.
Yeah.
He was like yelling at him, Hank, Hank. And he's like, no, I want to go with her. And then I was like, go get your spaghetti. He's like, oh, okay, bye. It's like, I will leave you for food any day.
This
So
guy
I,
just looks like,
he looks sad.
yeah.
I feel bad for him.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like this whole thing too, like even just watching the video of everything unfolding the other day with you guys was just it was sort of like how you said, you just want to like tell her run, you know, because you
Yes.
know what's gonna happen and you can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was chilling. Just hearing her come back into the kitchen and then she's singing. You know?
Horrible. Yep.
Like, come on.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
terrible.
I don't know. It's like I've thought about this more since yesterday, and then little Spawn and I talked about it a little bit, and because she hadn't seen any of that, and I told her what my thoughts were, and she agreed. She could see that, like with the person I was talking about, and you know, and I have been with that person when they have experienced hallucinations, because they have flat out asked me if I see something that I know is not there. It cannot be there. I don't even know if it exists ever, even in real life.
Yeah.
But if it did, it wouldn't exist where we were at.
Yeah.
And as serious as can be, that it's there. That why can't I see it? And I just was like, fortunately we were looking outside. And I just said, it must have just moved. I don't. And he's like, yeah, must have. And I thought, what do I tell you? I'm not going to tell you I can't see that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's. I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. It's terrible if she's actually going through something like that, right? But then,
Right.
like, you hear all of these things within this trial, and you're like, is she just really super smart and she just researched all the symptoms of all of these things that she was being diagnosed with so she could try
Yeah,
and
but
get away with something like this?
I wish. My other question is, what happens if you're put on something like Abilify when you don't need it?
Right.
Like, does that have any bad effects on you? Does it just not have any effect on you if
Yeah,
you
like
don't need it?
yeah. Good question.
But when the defense attorney said she was reporting to the jail that she was having hallucinations, and they are the ones that put her on the Abilify, and then she stopped, like said things stopped, and that stupid doctor at the end was like, oh, that's what, according to her. I'm like, well, according to who else is going to see her hallucinations?
Right. Well, and also, I mean, being put in solitary confinement for, I don't know how long she's been in solitary confinement, but
I would say since day one.
Yeah, I mean, it's solitary confinement is insane in itself, you know?
Oh, sorry. They're smiling at her. She was smiling at them, showing her dress to them, and they were smiling and nodding back at her. That's telling. And by the way, I'm back to, I don't think there's anything weird in between those two.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like super weird about this whole thing. It's just one of those things too, like when you don't go and watch other things about it before the trial because you know you're going to watch it. And so you don't know a lot about their whole background and whatever.
Right.
You just go into it blind and
which is what I like to do. Good night, Adair.
Night,
See
Adair.
you tomorrow. Which that's what I like to do. I will after.
Yeah.
I'll But I mean, the stepdad's a little off for me, but it doesn't
Right.
mean he's off. Like, he's not my type of person.
He's just a little to the left.
He's just meek, like, just, I don't know. Not that I'm like loud and boisterous, but
one of the bolts is a little loose.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but I do believe him when he says what he saw her. She looked terrified, like she had seen something else, that there was
Right.
somebody in the house.
Right.
Now, she didn't look that way when we saw her.
No.
And give the girl an Emmy if she's acting, if that's what she was able to pull off.
Yeah. Also, it's kind of like unfortunate too with like the videos, how they like splice them up like that, and like how they don't show the whole picture. That they don't show the friend there. They could have went in and blurred the friend's face out to protect the person.
Yep.
But they don't show that part.
And they have, so she does that to her mom, and then there's an hour that transpires there, but it looks immediate. It had me fooled. I was thinking it was immediate that she walked back into the kitchen and then sent that text message, but it was an hour.
Yeah, and that's what they do. They take all the footage and then they splice it up and put it together so it's seamless.
Yes. And I get, for time, you're not going to sit there for an hour, but at least make them announce they are jumping forward an hour.
Yeah. Because you're right, because it does look like that was all like right all together. And for the jury, that could be like, what?
Right.
Like,
it looks like there's just, and there wasn't a lot of time once they got home to the actual act. There was not, but more time than what we saw, because obviously for the sake of the court time, it took longer than what we saw, where it really just looks like it took a couple minutes for everything to happen. And it's kind of like when they pulled text messages out.
Yes.
And they're like, okay, so they said this on January 2nd? Yes. And then on July 3rd, they said this, correct? Yes. And then October 15th, they said this? Yes. Okay, guilty, right? Like, what happened to all this?
Oh, man. Yeah. Yep. They should have. Once they should have stopped the video and said, now between this time and this time, an hour and something has gone by, and then played it,
Yes. And the defense could have probably done that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would have made the judge happy, and then we wouldn't have had any entertainment. So,
Right. But I feel sorry for her, just for the fact of she's 14. No, you can't get around that.
Right.
So why does she look like she's crying?
Don't know.
She has eggs.
What? She with no eggs? She's with eggs? Are we about to have another pregnant pause?
I don't know, but she looks she doesn't look good. She was just smiling.
Read. Oh. So someone is in trouble.
As long as it's not me.
Me?
Oh, yeah, Carmen, I've been not reading that. So a 26-year-old had an emergency event, apparently, and then I think he had a seizure.
Huh. Jeez.
So it says he was confused and agitated, typical symptoms for someone who had suffered a severe seizure. As I'm not going to say the name, was trying to put on shorts to go to the hospital for medical attention. He lost his balance and fell into a police officer. At that time, officers became aggressive, yelling, "You don't treat law enforcement that way." Officers took him to the ground and handcuffed him face down on the floor. Multiple officers then remained on top of him while EMTs administered 3 separate doses of sedatives. Some of the EMTs on scene had responded earlier in the day to a different location where he'd had another, less severe seizure. They knew he was undergoing a medical emergency, and they knew he had asthma. Officers stayed on top of him more than 15 minutes with his face in a pillow. During this time, he begged for his life and screamed he couldn't breathe. His pleas and those of his aunt and grandmother were ignored. After more than 15 minutes, he went limp. His aunt noticed that he was blue in the face and pleaded with EMTs to do something. After an agonizing few minutes, they finally took his pulse and realized he was not breathing. He was taken to the hospital, but it was too late. After tests confirmed he had no brain activity, life support measures were terminated on September 10th.
Oh, that's terrible.
I knew something had happened. I just, like, it gets hard reading those stories.
Yeah, that's very sad.
But yeah, that was up north, northern part of our state. All right, well, they're done. That was fast. Alrighty then.
Yeah.
That's some fast jury instructions. He was talking about somebody getting married at the courthouse tomorrow. I don't know who that is.
Tracy Dane.
Hello, Tracy Dane. I have Danes. Do you have Danes? Love my Danes. So yeah, 26 years old. Yeah, Carmen, please don't do that at work, you know. It was like really overreaction for that when they
It's probably
Oh, you do? Oh my gosh, they're like potato chips, aren't they? You cannot just have one. Somebody told me that when I got my first Dane, and she was correct. I have 2 now. We just lost one. She was 10 and a half. What's it been? 2 weeks ago? August 30th. So, but yep. Best dogs ever. I love them. And, well, I think we did.
Oh my God.
I think we may have just become best friends.
BFF for life.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like super excited. Another Dane person. Love it.
Well.
Alrighty. That's a lot for today. Gabby, you've been here for a very, 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 very long time.
Yep. What has it been, like 4 days?
That's what last Friday felt like.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh yeah, and then Carmen's got a German Shepherd here. She's fine.
Poor Carmen. Poor Rue. Rue is really cute.
Rue's pretty cool. She needs to stop being scared of the air vents, but dear Lord, she can't even, like, she's in the hallway and it's clear across the room. And she wouldn't even, she about tripped me today because I don't know what she thought. I was like going to push her into an air vent that was all the way across the other side of the room, but she Scooby-Doo's it and can't move because she's, running on her. I don't know how she does it, but she gets like her, you know how cats put their claws out? That's how
Yeah.
like she kind of tries to run, but it's not carpet right there. And so she doesn't. I was like, my stream's running upstairs. Please do not knock me over and unalive me.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
So, but yes, Rue's good. She's very, very smart, but partial to my Danes. Sorry. So, all right, looks like 10 o'clock tomorrow morning will be, I know she did. I tell everybody, I defend her. Her memory is like, I don't know. People say that dogs forget in like 10 seconds or whatever. This dog remembers that for 3 years now. But anyway, so we're going to start around 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we'll do closings. Hopefully they do those first, or we'll just sit and
one can only hope.
Chit chat while they do jury instructions. Yeah. I tend to agree with you. They don't forget. But Root definitely has not forgot. She got her claw stuck in an air vent when she was a puppy, and it was bad. It was a very bad traumatic experience for her. So, but she's not always scared of air vents. That's the thing, and that kind of comes and goes in stages. So when it's been hotter here and our air AC has had to run more, it seems like that kind of kicks it up, because I don't really think she ever gets that way in the winter. I think it's more cold air than it is warm air. I don't know. It's just very random when she goes into one of these things where there's a air vent around every corner when there's not. Like, you know, like you want to go look, like, look, I looked under your bed, like for your kid, like there's no air vent there. You can walk in the room. It's fine. I promise. And you can walk in every room and not have to even walk by an air vent. There's also that. But yes, she just will randomly take off like running. And I moved a blanket in here that Hensley laid down on, and now she can see the air vent and she won't come in here. Oh my gosh. I don't change their spot where anything was because of they don't like that. We did, after we lost Hensley, we actually had an extra bed that we didn't need anymore, and it was all chewed up. So we did move that, and they looked like they were traumatized and they looked pathetic. Like we had just ruined their entire world. And then we just moved a bed over to closer to our bed, and they seemed to be okay. But my gosh, I was like, please be careful. I was more worried. So Hensley was 10 and a half, and our next Dane is 9. He turned 9 in June. So I was super worried about him because they've been together forever. But it's our youngest Dane, who's 2 and a half, that I think has missed Hensley the most, because they hung out on the back porch and they hung out. They would go out in the mornings and go on walks through the woods together and come back. And so I think she's missing her more. But, 10 and a half. I can't. Wow. You need to bring them to my vet, because he said 10 and a half was the oldest Dane he had ever seen. He would be amazed. Good for you. I thought she was going to make 11. I did, but she had skin cancer and she was too old to get it removed. And then I was trying to keep her going, because really she was fine other than that. But we couldn't keep the spot closed, and there was too many bad things that had the opportunity to happen to her that I just wasn't going to let her end up that way, because she didn't deserve it. So, yep, that was a horrible day. But yeah, that's the bad thing about Danes, is their life expectancy is so short and it goes by so fast. Really for all animals, but Danes are just on that shorter end. So, all right, you guys, I'm really going to go. Tracy, Dane, I hope to see you back. You and I need to talk about our dogs. Yeah, this skin cancer thing, it popped up really, really fast, and it was just all of a sudden. And we kept an eye on it, did what we could for it, but we couldn't, it got bigger, and he was like, if I mess with this too much, I can really make it angry, and then I can really make it go. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want her to be in pain. There were so many things I didn't want to do. And when I just couldn't do anything else that I was comfortable with, I couldn't take the chance on her just getting really ill from an infection or all the things that he was telling me that could happen. We had a very long talk about it, our vet and my vet. And then I just was like, that was the best decision and the fairest one, in my opinion. So, but good. I'm glad. I think you'll like it here. So, all right. Thanks again, Gabby. See you, Jody. I probably will not be up when you do whatever you're doing later. Because I'm going to probably crash. Alrighty. See you guys all in the morning. If I can find the right music.
Jody and Debbie here. Fill your screen with cheer. Hit like and tap subscribe. Join our happy tribe. Thanks for watching now. Hope you had a great wow. Come back very soon. Join us under the moon. Next